Hey soccer fans, this is Nick and welcome back to the Feed the Fire podcast where we're talking Chicago Fire and Major League Soccer. If you want to follow along and connect with the show, you can find me at Glasshouse Soccer on social media. You can find the Feed the Fire podcast on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. And if you want to reach out and talk to me directly, maybe throw a question my way, let me know what you feel about something we've talked about, you can email me glasshousesoccer@gmail.com. This episode, we're going to review the Chicago Fire's 2-2 draw against LAFC. We are going to take a quick look at the league standings and how this playoff picture is shaping up for the Chicago Fire. We also have a new signing to announce, albeit on loan. We're going to talk a little bit about how the Fire acquired Andre Franco and what he brings to the team. Then we're going to look at just a couple other little fun things at the end of the show. I had a friend in my MLS content creators group chat who put together a list of goals and assists by designated players per team. So are the Chicago Fire's top talented and top paid players producing the way that we would expect DPs to produce? And then if we have time, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the Sports Misery Index put out by ESPN. It says it kind of gives you and helps quantify how miserable of a fan you are depending on the team or teams that you follow. And I know a lot of you already have seen this and have looked at the MLS rankings and who has the most miserable fans. I don't think it's going to come to a shock to anyone who's been listening to this podcast or following the Chicago Fire, but we'll go through it and I'll walk you through it and do it myself. I haven't actually gone through the process yet of it, so it'll be all new experience. And then we will see if there's any time left for a little bit of fun we'll have along the way. But I want to first just say it was great. I was out on vacation over the weekend. Went down to Rosemary Beach, Florida with my family, and Seacrest Beach and Alice Beach Town, all these great little areas just outside Panama City. And we're sitting in the little pavilion of the condo complex where we are. And this mom and her son walk by, and the kid's wearing a St. Louis City jersey. And I just kind of look up and say, "Hey, nice jersey." And the kid's like, "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers." Just kind of like kept his head down. And the mom goes, "Oh, thanks. Are you from St. Louis?" I said, "No, I'm from Chicago. I'm a big fan of the Fire. And I know St. Louis is coming to play Chicago this weekend. I'm going to be at the match." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, we're a big fan of MLS and soccer in St. Louis. And we try to go to as many matches as we can." So, yeah, even down at the beach town, it was nice to see an MLS jersey out there, albeit a St. Louis City jersey at that. But let's get right into the content, the heart of everything that we want to talk about here, Chicago Fire related. Looking at the Fire's last match, a 2-2 draw against LAFC in Bridgeview, it started out as a decent first half for the Fire. It looked like they created some good opportunities. They only get the first goal, Carlos Terán in the 11th minute off of a corner kick. His last two games, he has not been afraid to get into the offensive zone, mix it up a little bit, and especially on set pieces. This is where he can really thrive, as more often than not, the biggest or one of the three biggest guys on the pitch at any match that the Chicago Fire will play. So it's great to see him pushing up and kind of flexing his offensive prowess a little bit. In the prior match, he had one heck of a shot that he took off of a recycled corner kick as well. One timed it into the side netting, on the outside of the side netting, unfortunately, but it was a great shot, showing confidence in his ability and showing his desire to contribute more offensively on the team. So phenomenal for him to get his goal. I think it was his first goal of the season since he spent so much time on the bench injured. So great to see him feeling good. Unfortunately, though, it was Terán, since we were talking about him, who fouls Son in the box to set up the penalty kick. Now, I'll tell you something about this. Son played a good game. LAFC is an excellent team. They know how to pressure. They know how to counterattack. I don't know if this was an actual penalty kick. I think this is one of those referee decided to blow the whistle and just had to kind of live with it. I didn't get a chance to watch the game again. I was on vacation, but I saw a lot on social media and commentary and kind of after the fact thoughts that the referee did not have a good game. I will just say it there. I don't like talking about referees too much, but this was one, you look at the replays of it, it's a very physical challenge. But was it a foul? I mean, yes, there was a lot of contact there is a lot of body contact there, but to me, Son goes down and gets up looking for a call immediately. Like, to me, that's just gamesmanship from the forward, from the attacking player. And we know Turan is a big physical player, but he gets in front of the attacker. He gets in front of Son, but their thighs, their upper legs make a lot of contact, and that was enough, I guess, for the referee to blow it. If on an average MLS day with an average referee in the middle of the pitch, I don't know if they even call this a foul. But for this referee with Son going down in the box and Turan coming in, yeah, he called it a PK. So not a fan of the call, not a fan of that leading to the tying goal in the 81st minute. Denny Bouanga equalizes from the spot. And Brady guesses right, but Bouanga goes high, and Brady, as he should be, as goalies do, are going to go mid to low when they make their dives. So well taken PK by Bouanga to salvage a point on the road for LAFC. Also, goals scored by Ryan Hollingshead in the 19th minute for LAFC and Jonathan Bamba in the 70th minute for Chicago. Just a great little 1-2 combination. Zinkernagel with a couple more assists, I think, in this one. Great 1-2 combination. Great little touches in the box. And I love the placement of the shot from Bamba, putting it, just roofing it, going right over LAFC's keeper, right over Lloris in this one, and finding the back of the net to give the Chicago the lead. So great work by the Fire. Couple of things to point out from a lineup perspective. The Fire, again, going with their 4-3-3, but we see Jay Davila get the start in this match in place of Mauricio Pineda in the defensive midfield role, or in place of Kellen Acosta, whoever else might be there. We've seen Jay grow and develop over the course of the season. His first few appearances were awful. Poor touches, poor decision-making on the offensive side. On the defensive side, similarly, poor decision-making, late tackles, out of position, frequent yellow cards. But we have seen him grow and kind of find a little bit of comfort in how the MLS game is played, as well as working with his new teammates. So continue to watch his growth and development and see if he ends up getting back-to-back starts for the first time in MLS League play with the Fire. Also, we saw Leo Barroso get the start at right back. Didn't know if Jonathan Dean would be getting into the match at all for him, but he ends up subbing in for Andrew Gutman. So it was good to see Gutman healthy enough to start after picking up a knock in the last match, but Jonathan Dean comes in there from him. I do love the fact that John over at Men in Red 97 put out that Jonathan Dean, while he has been playing this season, has not allowed now Son and Wilfred Zaha and Muriel from Orlando City to score a goal on him at all. So got them all in his back pocket there. That's fantastic. We did see a lot of yellow cards here. Brady, Turan, and Guti all pick up yellows in this match, as well as Zinkernagel, who gets subbed out late, hopefully preserving. I think that's just a preservation move there, just to make sure he doesn't pick up a second yellow and can start his recovery a little bit to get ready for a big game against St. Louis here. So if we look at the stats, and again, I didn't get a chance to see it. It looked like both teams really had some good opportunities, something I thought would happen. Thought there'd be some good offense. Let's look at the stats and see if it matches up with what you all saw when you watched this game. The Fire actually ended up with more possession, 51%, so barely more possession. They had 10 shots, only 3 on goal and 2 blocked shots. Meanwhile, LAFC, 12 shots, 6 on goal, 5 blocked shots. The Fire strung together 476 passes at an 86.8% passing accuracy, so a decent passing game. And similarly, LAFC, 490 passes, 89% or 88.8% passing accuracy. And we looked at that in the last episode previewing the match when we got into some of the advanced stats over on fbref.com, that the Chicago Fire and LAFC have a lot of similar statistics, offensive statistics and passing trends. However, LAFC ended up with 6 corners to the Fire's 1. So when watching the game, do you recall the Fire trying to play more centrally rather than getting it out onto the wings and having to try and get past and get beyond and get behind the 5 midfielders for LAFC? I wonder if that kind of bogged things down a little bit and forced the Fire up the middle. The Fire ended up with 2 crosses, no offside, They did not somehow track aerial duels on this match. Thanks a lot, MLSsoccer.com. The Fire did end up with 1.1 XG, so they actually converted some of the more difficult shots, still not getting a lot of higher percentage chances, whereas LAFC, 2 XG, obviously when you have a PK, it's going to bump it up by about a 0.9, so that came up big for them. Goalkeeper saves, Brady is credited with 4. The Fire defense credited with 4 clearances, 7 fouls, and 4 yellow cards. You saw the match kind of go back and forth. The Fire really dominated towards the end of that first half, but then also controlled most of the second half, other than that breakaway leading to a penalty kick for LAFC. So all in all, you have a team in LAFC who, after that result, now sits 5th in the Western Conference behind really good San Diego, Vancouver, and very good Minnesota and Seattle teams. A point against LAFC with Sun coming on, with all the hype, with the crowd that perhaps wasn't totally Chicago Fire friendly, or at least they weren't anti-Chicago, maybe not totally friendly. You take the point against LAFC. You want to win those home games. You want to get some more offense, but this was an excellent matchup for the Chicago Fire, and it'd be nice if we get to see LAFC in the playoffs, because that means we're playing for a trophy. But this is something that I think would give the Chicago Fire confidence that they were able to get a result against one of the better teams in MLS. After that result, the Chicago Fire now sit in 9th in the Eastern Conference standings. They are on 36 points. Due to that last gasp goal for the Red Bulls, they end up winning the match and jumping up, and are now tied with the Fire on points. However, they are also tied on wins, 10 apiece. So it goes to goal differential. The Chicago Fire are at +5, and the Red Bulls are at +4. So that is a very, very tight window there between the Chicago Fire and the New York Red Bulls for that 9th playoff spot right now. The only thing dividing them is the Chicago Fire is up +1 in goal differential. Now, the Fire do have a game in hand, so hopefully they'll be able to win that game in hand and put a little bit of a cushion there, but even with the draw, at least they'll sneak in that 9 spot. What's encouraging is that the Fire also are only 2 points behind 8th place New York City, who have one more win than the Fire and the same goal differential as the Fire. So that would be an easy jump for the Fire to get into that 8th spot to leapfrog New York City. And by the way, they have a match against New York City on September 13th at Soldier Field, a home game for the Fire. They already did end up losing to New York City away 3-1 back in May earlier in the season, so they're going to need to take those 3 points if they're going to try and leapfrog New York City, I believe. Also encouraging, Charlotte is sitting in the 7th spot, the last guaranteed playoff spot, on 41 points. So that's going to be a little bit tougher for the Chicago Fire to get into that 7th spot. They're going to have to make up a 5-point gap on Charlotte. Now, Charlotte, though, if we look at their schedule coming up, we've talked about the Chicago Fire schedule. They've got a little bit of an easier schedule, I think, in the last couple of months. Charlotte has Salt Lake, Red Bulls, New England, Miami, New York City, Montreal, DC, and ends the day, Decision Day, October 18th, ends the season on Decision Day, with a game at home against Philadelphia. So they've got a few losses in there, I would think. So the Fire, if they can win the games they should, steal some points, beat New York City, steal some points at the end of the season. They're still playing New England and Toronto. Get those wins. There's a chance the Fire get into that 7th spot and get an automatic playoff berth. Or more than likely, I think we see Chicago in the 8th spot, maybe the 9th spot in a play-in game. Still improvement over last season. Still improvement on this season. But that's where I'm thinking we see the Chicago Fire. What would be nice would be to get a couple more clean sheets down the home stretch, get a few more 3-0 results, and maybe pad that goal differential just a little bit, because, again, Charlotte is on 13 wins, New York City is on 11, and the Red Bulls are on 10. Charlotte, New York City, and the Fire all right now are on +5 goal differential. New York Red Bulls on +4. So it is very, very tight with those first two tiebreakers being wins and goal differential. And as we get closer to the end of the season, I'll be sure to go through all the other different tiebreakers that the league uses. I think there's like 8 or 9 before they get down to a coin flip. God, I hope it doesn't come to that and just make us Chicago Fire fans even more miserable having to watch a coin flip decide our postseason fate. Speaking, though, of being miserable, no, I'm not going to get into the Sports Misery Index. We are actually going to talk about some good news. We are going to talk about the Chicago Fire's newest acquisition, Andre Franco, a Portuguese midfielder. And on the Chicago Fire website, they announced it today, Wednesday, August 13th. You got a lot of great coverage from Men in Red 97 and Alex Calabrese, who was in the know with this, so make sure you go check that out. He also reported that the Fire will not be, or that his visa is complete. It's been acquired, so he is eligible to play this weekend against St. Louis City. So great news for the Fire there. Hopefully we can see him kind of make a token appearance. Hopefully he can come in, when the Fire are up 2-3 goals and just kind of ease into the league a little bit. But we'll see how he's feeling after his travel from Portugal. But here's the official announcement from the Chicago Fire FC communications team on their website. Chicago Fire FC today announced that the club has acquired midfielder Andre Franco from Futebol Clube do Porto of Portugal's Primeira Liga through the 2025 season with an option to purchase. Franco will occupy an international roster position with the Fire. Per the club and MLS policy, terms of the deals were not disclosed. So again, this is a loan through the end of the season with an option to buy. This was able to come about with Chris Mueller going, at least from a roster standpoint, with Chris Mueller going on season-ending injury. The Fire were able to replace his roster spot with a player up to his salary without any penalty. And then also with Amari Glasgow going on loan to Loudoun United, which I mistakenly said was DC United's MLS Next Pro Club team. They used to be affiliated with DC. They are in USL Championship. Amari Glasgow is now with Loudoun United, so that freed up an international spot that the Fire could use on Franco there. So now we hear from head coach Greg Berhalter. Quote, "We're excited to welcome Andre to Chicago to bolster the team as we make a push for the playoffs and look to finish the season strong. He is an experienced midfielder who has played in several competitions across Europe, as well as the FIFA Club World Cup, and we know that he can make an impact this season." End quote. So there's a little hint from Berhalter there. So they found someone who's got international club experience, and if you know anything about the Porto team recently, they have played in European competitions as well. But Berhalter says here at the end, we know that he can make an impact this season. So what does that tell you? The Fire are going for it. They want to make a playoff run. They want to finish the season strong. But does that mean he's just a rental piece and that the Fire will not pick up his option? That's probably going to be a decision in the offseason when they see what other sort of free agent and transfer signings might be available to them. But what I do love about, I'm kind of getting ahead of my notes here, but what I do love about this move is, everyone's been critical of Miami for how they are quote-unquote cheating. But they're just taking full advantage of the roster rules as they're written right now. Nice to see the Chicago Fire being a little bit flexible with their roster rules, moving Mueller, moving Glasgow, freeing up some allocation money. If they stay in the 2DP 4U22 model, they get the extra $1 million in GAM at the end of this year, $2 million total this year, and they're able to then maybe put that towards some of these costs. I forget if it has to be spent in that season, or if the first $500,000 can roll into the next season. I forget the details on that, but the Fire, given themselves a good player, they've been making some roster utilization moves here, being very flexible, making sure they use the full advantage of all the rules that are there, and hopefully can sign him, if it's worth it, to a DP contract next season, perhaps max TAM if they can use some of this GAM to buy it down. We'll see. I'm kind of speaking a little outside my wheelhouse with how the TAM and GAM and DP roster rules completely are working, going from loan to full roster spot DP. But depending on whatever the transfer fee is, that'll affect how he's designated as a DP and how many years they can spread that transfer fee over when he comes to Chicago. But again, the Fire are giving themselves flexibility. This is the takeaway. They're giving themselves flexibility. They understand the roster rules in MLS. They understand roster construction in MLS. They are taking full advantage of every little thing that they can in order to build the strongest roster possible. Now, part of me is kind of a traditionalist guy, or a guy who doesn't like to think too much about all these various roster rules. Is like, just sign guys to contracts and let's stick with it. But you've seen the clubs that have had success. Miami, most immediately. LAFC they are constantly turning over parts of their roster, constantly signing star players or star quality players to loan agreements or one-year deals, and are constantly flipping guys over. The Galaxy couldn't plan for that, and you saw how fast and far they fell after winning MLS Cup this last season. They pick up an injury to Ricky Puig. They have to get rid of a couple of their guys. Paintsel and Peck all of a sudden aren't producing at MLS Cup champion levels, and they fall flat. They didn't have the flexibility that you saw. Now, is it worth it because they won MLS Cup last season? Maybe, maybe not if you're the Galaxy and bearing the weight of that name. However, Chicago is finally in the mix of these clubs that are being able to take advantage of, first understanding it and then taking advantage of the roster rules. That's my biggest takeaway from this club perspective. Okay, let me take a breath. Grab a drink. Sip your Skira Icelandic spring water that you went out and got from 7-Eleven while we catch a breath here and get back into the remainder of Franco's announcement from the Fire. Franco, 27, joined Chicago from Porto, where he has appeared in 71 matches overall and scored 5 goals across all competitions since 2022. During his time with Porto, Franco helped to guide the team to the Portuguese Cup title twice in 2023 and 2024, as well as the Primeira Liga title in the 2022-23 season and the Portuguese Super Cup in 2025. So he's won 4 trophies with Porto, all within the last 2 to 3 years. He was also a member of the Porto side that qualified for and participated in the FIFA Club World Cup this year, making appearances in their opening match against Palmeiras. Now we get to hear from the player himself. Quote, "I'm very happy to join the Chicago Fire and can't wait to wear the jersey and begin playing with our colors. I hope it's the beginning of a wonderful journey and that we can achieve all our goals together." End quote. So not a lot to take out of that quote there. I like the fact that he is goal-focused and seems to be excited to come and play in Chicago. And what's great is he probably took a little bit of that experience with the Club World Cup playing in the United States and said, you know what, I could play there for an extended period of time. Again, something I made mention of in prior episodes, that even though it's schedule congestion and even though it's a cash grab and even all the whatever criticisms are out there about FIFA and the Club World Cup, it really did give international players, agents, scouts, anyone involved in the game a chance to see Major League Soccer clubs, facilities, and how the sport is in the United States from a fan perspective, and maybe build some relationships between these clubs, and maybe give the players like, maybe I might want to play a few years in MLS and see the United States, or hey, maybe I might want to play 7-8 years and really build a name for myself in MLS. So I think that's a benefit. Maybe we see that here. That's just my speculation. Now, the article concludes that prior to joining Porto, the Lisbon native began his youth career in the Sporting CP Academy, where he rose through the ranks before going on a season-long loan to Belenenses U19 Academy. He later joined GD Estoril Praia's U23 squad and progressed to the Estoril first team. Again, this is all in Portugal. Franco helped Estoril return to the Primeira League as the team claimed the 2020-2021 Segunda League title, so helped the team get promoted. Always good on a resume. He appeared in 72 matches, scored 15 goals, and had 10 assists for Estoril across all competitions, as well as 7 appearances in their U23s. He will occupy an international roster spot with the Fire. Just a couple bio pieces about him. He's a midfielder, but also can play out on the wing or can play centrally, a bit more of a creative attacking type of a player. A complement to Gutierrez. Some people are saying he could replace Gutierrez depending on transfer interests over the offseason. I don't want to get ahead of myself and buy into that yet because I don't know how much the interest is for Guti overseas anymore. We'll see if they can make a good playoff run, and if Gutierrez can improve in a couple other little things, defensive being one of them. But yeah, Franco could come in and step in. But he is expected, I think, and I expect him to be an offensive contributor from when he steps onto the pitch, linking up with Zinkernagel, Kuipers, Bamba, Gutierrez, and the like. He's 5'10", 161 pounds. Born April 12th, 1998 in Lisbon, Portugal, is a Portuguese international and most recently played for Porto. So that's the info from him on the Chicago Fire announcement. When he was with Porto, he did play in UEFA Champions League and Europa League, as well as the FIFA Club World Cup that we've seen. So he had, let's see, 4 appearances in the Champions League, 4 or 5 appearances in the Champions League. Yeah, 5 appearances Champions League, 2 in the Europa League, and then the 1 in the Club World Cup. So a little bit of some international club competition there. This looks to be a great pickup. Personally, I think it's an excellent move. You're bolstering your midfield depth a little bit. You get a versatile player who can play out on the wing, who can play centrally and link up with the offense and be the guy to transition from defense to offense. You're going to get someone who has a nose for goal, who looks forward, who likes to play attacking football, who likes, as Greg Berhalter said when he was signed on, to play that attractive, fun style that everyone's going to like to watch. Now, I like everything about this signing. If you're going to look for drawbacks, you're going to say, but what are they doing to address the defense? This is great. They got a guy. It's short-term loan, half season. It can kind of be an extended tryout if you think of it that way, so you got some flexibility with it. However, what are we going to do to address the defense? The Fire have only had 4 clean sheets all season. Only 2 of those coming in wins. The other 2 were 0-0 draws. The Fire need to bolster their defense. You've got you never know what's going to happen with Turan and Gutman as far as injuries go. And can Barroso and Dean be your starters if you're trying to make a run in or start in a playoff series? Imagine if you're going to have. If you win that play-in game, say against New York City or the Red Bulls or Charlotte, if they fall to that spot, and then now you've got to go up against Miami or Philadelphia in a 3-game series, or Cincinnati in a 3-game series with Dean and Barroso starting, or with Jack Elliott and Turan or Rogers or Pineda or whoever else ends up back there, right? Like, does that give you enough confidence? There's still time in the transfer window. I think there's another week left or so for the Fire to kind of improve their back line or their defense. The fact that they've got Mauricio Pineda on the team, I think gives them just a little less worry because he can play center back or D-mid, though we've seen his best performances lately in a midfield role this season. But that, I think, is fair criticism. What are the Fire doing to improve their defense? Now, we saw the reports that they were negotiating for Patrick Berg over at Bodo Glimt in Norway, that Danish player. He's more of a defensive midfielder, a guy who can really control the game. Is that something, if I know anything about following the Fire as closely as I have the last year, they definitely have a second option who fits that same kind of mold that Berg does, but they're not stupid. They know they need more help. Now, you can drop Marin Haile Selassie into an outside back and have him play a wing back role. Worst case scenario. I don't know if you'd want to do that with Bamba at all. I don't think his one-on-one defending is that good. That just kind of was a thought that popped into my head as kind of like an opposite winger, but it's something that Selassie could do in a pinch. So do they need, and we saw Chase Gasper starting to get back to 100%, so do they need a center back? Do they need a D-mid who can cover for all of that and help just raise the floor of the defense? Or are they looking for more of a one-on-one defender, more traditional outside back versus a wing back? So that's all to be determined within the next week or so. The other thing I've noticed from following the Fire as closely as I have is they do a really good job about keeping their transfer rumors close to the chest there. Most of the time you'll hear rumors from overseas outlets who really don't have a lot of information or good information or have a good reputation in the past. So take all that stuff with a grain of salt until you hear it from any Chicago media guys, Men in Red, On Tap Sportsnet. Those are the guys who I'm looking for, or your MLS guys, Tom Bogert and the like. not Tom Booger. Don't get boogered. But if you're listening to those sources, that's when you can really start to get excited about stuff. All right, there we go. I think that covers everything I want to tell you there. The last couple things, I don't know if we'll get to the sports misery index, but spoiler alert, Chicago Fire are the most miserable MLS franchise, or at least have the most miserable fans. Maybe we'll get into that in the next episode a little bit, or maybe I'll do a quickie one with it when we preview the matchup against St. Louis next. But I wanted to go over this chart that Mike over at, what podcast is he a part of? Mike over at the Orlando Lions Den podcast put together. And it gives you the sum of goals, assists, MLS assists, which I think is, second assist, like a hockey assist, the sum of the real goals and assists, and the sum of MLS goals and assists for designated players. So if you're just talking about pure goals, far and away, Orlando City's designated players are leading the league. Orlando's DPs have 33 goals, 17 assists on the season. Nashville has 30 goals and 10 assists from their DPs on the season. And then you look at FC Cincinnati, who has 27 goals and 8 assists. And then the Red Bulls have 24 goals and 8 assists from their DPs. Mike also wanted to highlight San Diego. Even though their DPs only have 20 goals, their DPs have 21 assists. So the highest goals and assists of any DPs in the league: Orlando City with 50, Nashville with 40, San Diego with 41. Where are the Fire on this one? The Fire designated players only have 18 goals and 5 assists, giving them a total of 23. That puts them on par with Atlanta United, Colorado Rapids, FC Dallas, who else down the list? Kansas City, San Jose Earthquakes. So if you want to compare that now across the rest of the team, the Chicago Fire have 47 goals on the season. So that means, let me do some quick math in my head here, that 29 goals have come from players other than their DPs. And as far as assists on the season, the Chicago Fire, quickly navigating here, the Chicago Fire have a grand total of, why won't it total the assist numbers for me here? 28. Let me pause the recording and do some quick math. Okay, sorry if the recording was a little off there, because I had to pause it because I'm adding up the goals and assists on the Chicago Fire's club page on MLSsoccer.com, and it says that they have 47 goals and 48 assists. So I'm not exactly sure how that works out. But again, getting back to the point of all of this, Chicago Fire designated players, according to Mike, only have 5 assists. However, yeah. Now, Zinkernagel, the Fire's best statistical player at least, 10 goals, 12 assists. So the Fire are getting tons of production out of a great signing in Philip Zinkernagel. He has checked every box prospectively, currently, and retroactively as far as good scouting, good production, good player, all of that. He checks every box for the Fire. So he's playing like a DP, producing like a DP, but obviously is not an actual DP. That belongs to Jonathan Bamba, who has underperformed, only 4 goals and 8 assists, and Hugo Kuipers, the other designated player, 14 goals, 2 assists. Now, Kuipers is more of a pure striker, so he's not going to be getting those assist numbers. Also, if you want to look at our next highest assist guys, if you're looking at pure numbers, we've got Gutman with 8, Selassie and Dean with 4. Imagine that. Marin Haile Selassie and Jonathan Dean are the 4th and 5th best assist, have the fourth and fifth highest assist numbers for the Chicago Fire. You're also seeing Guti with 7 goals. Barlow's hat trick is in there. Gutman, Selassie, Kwame all with 2 goals, and then a handful from the defense. Turan, Elliott, and Barroso also with a goal. So the Fire have spread around their goal scoring, their assist numbers. That's for sure. They have a huge contributor in Philip Zingernagel. So you can't say the Fire have not signed good DPs. The Fire, I think, have built a really, really good overall roster, whereas Nashville, Orlando City, and San Diego have built around designated players. And who else is on that list? Because let's take a look back at the standings. Who are the teams that are atop of the Eastern Conference? Philly, Cincinnati, Nashville, and Orlando. So we've seen Cincinnati, Nashville, and Orlando at the top of the DP production numbers. But Philadelphia, let's check them really quick. Yeah, they only have 17 goals and assists from their designated players. Also, you got to think the Chicago Fire only have 2 DPs. These other teams, I believe, have 3 designated players, so that gives them the extra stats. Maybe we need to average it to have a little bit more of an accurate representation. But now if you want to look at the Western Conference, your top 4 clubs, San Diego, we know they're one of the clubs with the top producing DPs. Vancouver, Minnesota, Seattle. Vancouver has 2 goal productions from their DPs this season. 1 goal, 1 assist, according to Mike's chart here. Minnesota, only 17 goals and assists. I was looking at previously the MLS goals and assists, the second assist, and all that sort of thing. So, sorry, let me backtrack. Vancouver only has 1 goal, 0 assists from their DPs. Minnesota, 11-6, and Seattle has 17-9. So these are clubs that aren't depending on their DPs. They're depending more on roster, coaching experience, depth, full starting 11, those type of things than they are on their designated players. So it's a little bit of strategy. I think Mike did some great work putting it together here. I'd love to actually see, like, if you could break down goals and assists or goal contributions per dollars spent. I would love to know that if the Fire spent $10 million for 10 goals versus another team spending $100 million for 15 goals, things of that nature. Like, what's the average amount of a DP goal contribution going to cost you? I think that would be an interesting breakdown. But I just don't have the patience and the wherewithal to do all that. So, maybe if one of you fans out there are bored and want to take a look at it. But that's it. That's the breakdown. That's the episode. I want to thank you all for tuning in and listening. Sorry, it's been a long couple of days getting back into the swing of things from being on the Florida beaches over the long weekend. And so I may have been rambling just a little bit more than usual. But hey, if you've been listening to the show, you know that the rambling has a point and that I'll bring it all back, right? That's the lawyer in me. I'll bring it all back. I'll make my nice closing argument. And for this episode, I just want to, again, encourage everyone, please share the show. Let's grow the conversation around the Fire, around Major League Soccer, soccer in America. I'm going to start having some more kid soccer stories. I am coaching my first graders team this fall, so stay tuned for more Nick's adventures in youth coaching. I know a lot of people got some good commentary on that the last couple of seasons. But again, like, subscribe, rate, review, share the show, grow the conversation. And as always, let's go Fire.